Have you ever spent hours or even days or weeks working on a difficult passage, but it just doesn't seem to get any better no matter how many repetitions you put in? These practice plateaus can be really frustrating, and it's easy to assume that the solution is just to put in even more time and repetition, or that maybe we've hit the ceiling of our ability and this passage is just never going to get where it needs to be. Fortunately, these plateaus are usually temporary, and there's almost always something we can do to get unstuck. A 2014 study offers a blueprint for one way to do exactly that, and it turns out to be an awful lot like a game my Suzuki teachers used to have us play when I was a kid. Hi, I'm Noah Kageyama. I'm a performance psychologist and Juilliard-trained violinist, and I translate research from the performance science literature into practical strategies to help you practice smarter and perform your best when it matters most. In this video, we'll look at a study that compares two very different approaches to practicing. We'll see which approach led to significantly greater improvement in the same exact amount of practice. And I'll share a few specific ways you can apply this to your own learning to not only get unstuck and have more fun in the practice room, but be more secure in performance as well. So when I was a little kid taking violin lessons at the local Suzuki program, one of the more memorable things my teacher had me do was to flip my bow around and try to play while holding it at the tip instead of the frog. I've often thought of this over the years and recently wondered, why did my teacher have us do this? Was it just some goofy creative thing she invented to keep me entertained? Or is there actually a research basis for practicing this way? In a 2014 study, a team of Spanish researchers recruited 30 young tennis players to see if they could improve the speed and accuracy of their serves. Everyone started out with a baseline test. Standing on one side of the court, they were given 20 serves and told to serve as fast and as accurately as possible at a target roughly 20 inches wide. Then the players were split into two groups. For the next 4 to 6 weeks, everyone completed 12 practice sessions of 60 serves each. One group, the consistency group, practiced their serve normally, standing in the same spot, using the same service motion, trying to make their serve as accurate and as repeatable as possible. The other group, the variable group, did things a little differently. Instead of drilling their serve normally, they spent their practice time serving in all sorts of wacky ways that would never actually happen in a match, like serving on one leg, changing the width of their stance, standing on a thick mat to change their height, serving from several feet in front of or behind the baseline, tossing the ball in front of them, behind them, or way off to one side, even serving while facing 45 or even 90 degrees away from the net. So did all that time spent on serves they'd never actually use in a real match do anything? Let's start with speed. The consistency group's serves sped up by 4.8%. The variable group's serves sped up by 7.68%. But this difference between groups wasn't statistically significant, meaning both groups basically improved their speed by a similar amount. So what about accuracy? Well, the consistency group, the ones who spent 6 weeks drilling the same thing over and over, didn't improve their accuracy at all. The variable group, the ones who did those unconventional challenges instead, were hitting the ball 18 inches or a whopping 1.5 feet closer to the target than before they started. Why would practicing seemingly impractical or useless variations of a serve make players more accurate at the actual serve? There's an idea in motor learning called schema theory that offers an explanation. It suggests that when we learn a physical skill, our brain doesn't build a separate program for every possible version of that movement. Instead, it builds one flexible template called a generalized motor program that we adjust based on whatever that specific moment actually demands. Meaning, instead of having one motor program for hitting a ball that comes in high with topspin and a completely different one for a ball that comes in low with backspin, we have a single adaptable program that gets tweaked in real time depending on what's actually coming at us. Those in-the-moment adjustments to the ball, how fast it's moving, where it lands, the bounce height, type of spin, and so on, are known as parameters, which dictate the sort of adjustments we have to make to our generalized motor program. And developing the ability to adjust those parameters on the fly, a process known as parameterization, matters just as much as building the generalized motor program itself. So somewhat paradoxically, it seems we may be able to increase consistency not by practicing the exact same way every time, but by deliberately building a more flexible skill set. And how does this relate to music? A few years ago, I had a chance to chat with pianist Julian Martin about how to adapt more quickly to an unfamiliar piano, and the ideas he shared line up with what this study found. He said that it can be invaluable to practice producing the effect we want, whether that's a certain color, articulation, phrasing, or voicing, in more than one way, so that even if the piano in front of us feels nothing like the one we practice on at home, our technique is flexible enough to adapt to whatever is in front of us. He also mentioned that Claudio Rao's teacher, Martin Krause, or maybe Krause, believed something similar. Krause felt his students should be able to play a single phrase across a huge range of dynamics and tempos, even if that meant playing it, at least in practice, in a way that would be completely wrong for the piece itself. Because if we've built that kind of range into our playing, we have the option to play in whatever way we feel is most fitting in the moment. Whether we're playing in a hall with the acoustics of a bathroom, no matter the effect that unexpected rainy weather is having on our reeds, regardless of whether the piano's touch is incredibly light or heavy, or however fast or slow our heart might be beating in the moment. So how can we put this into practice? Thing number one, if a passage isn't improving no matter how many times you play it, give yourself permission to change things a little bit, in one of two directions. If the passage is unplayable, simplify it. Slow it down slightly, or keep the tempo, but play fewer notes at a time and gradually add more back in, or soften the dynamic contrast, or ease up on the articulation, increasing the difficulty only as you're ready. Trumpet player and researcher Micah Killian calls this doableizing, and I'll link to more information about this in the description below. Or if the passage is basically fine but not reliable under pressure, make it harder instead. Play it faster than marked. Push the dynamics to the opposite extreme. Change the articulation completely. Try different types of vibrato. Phrase it one way, then another. None of this is how you'd actually play it on stage, and that's kind of the idea. Thing number two, vary the physical conditions, not just the notes. Practice on a different instrument if you have access to one. Use your backup bow, or reed with different strengths and weaknesses. Change your position, standing instead of sitting, cross-legged on the floor, balanced on one leg. Change your location, the garage, the basement, the bathroom, the back seat of the minivan, anything that forces your technique to adapt instead of locking into one narrow version of how the passage is supposed to go. Thing number three, expect that this may feel unproductive and let yourself have fun anyway. None of these variations make the passage easier in the moment, so it may not feel like direct progress. But that's exactly what happened with the tennis players too. The group doing all those pointless variations wasn't practicing their actual serve at all, and they were the only ones who got more accurate. None of this has to replace your regular practice on the actual passages that you're working on, of course. Think of it as something you fold in alongside it to make practicing a little more interesting and a little more fun. If you feel like you're doing all the right things in the practice room and you still don't feel like your work shows up when you need it most, I put together a free 7-day email course called Pressure Proof. It guides you through some of the most essential practice and performance preparation strategies that performers use to make more progress in less time and shrink the gap between practice and performance. Link is in the description below.